I want to be able to plow right through any obstacles because I'm already prepared for it.
You're listening to IdeaCharger Radio. Hi there, Success Chargers. It's Scott. Welcome to episode 12. Man, I can't believe it's been almost 3 months since we started podcasting out to the world. And I got to tell you, each and every week, we just get more and more of you out there that are enjoying what you find. So thank you for spreading the word to your friends. You're letting us know that what you're getting here is of value to you. Because I know what it's like when you're that square peg people keep trying to put in the round hole. That person who sees the world a little differently. Sometimes you feel kind of lonely, right? Well, we're building a community here, and we're glad that you are a part of it. Last episode, in episode 11, we took a look at resilience. And we had my good friend Jimmy Monk, who's a Pennsylvania State Trooper, on to talk about some of his experiences as a trooper and how that translates over to the work he does with clients as he works with them for leadership development and lessons and programs on resiliency and recovering from failures. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to episode 11, I encourage you, go back and take a listen because Jimmy's words, I think, were very helpful. And for some of you out there that maybe have had some setbacks in your business, it can feel pretty lonely when you're out here as that lone wolf, that solopreneur, that person who looks at your business a little bit different. Or maybe you've got that entrepreneurial spirit and you're inside of another business, right? As I call someone else being able to pay your overhead while you run the business you want to run. That's a pretty cool experience too, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't come without setbacks. And I don't want those setbacks to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Disheartening for you. What I want you to find is that those valleys are when we do our best growth. I had a conversation with a friend of mine just this week, and we talked about that very topic, about it's the tough times that allow us to dig in and find out who we are, what we're about, and we grow the most in those times. Because frankly, when business is just flying in the door so fast, you can't hardly do anything but keep up. That's a nice problem to have, but it doesn't allow you to really focus as much on your business, and you find that you're working maybe sometimes a little too much in your business. And I want to help you get back to that on your business part of what we do. One of the things we already know about you is that you look at your business different than other people. Well, today we're going to look at it so different, you're going to think we've made a 180-degree turn. Today we're talking about negativity. Now, I've invited my friend Craig Price, who's a speaker on negativity, to come in and share a little bit about what his take is on how we can leverage the things going on around us. He was gracious enough to actually come visit our studio here in the Woodlands, Texas, and he stopped by. And I'm going to have to be honest with you for a minute. In a moment of full disclosure, I moved out of the regular studio space into another area of the house here and had Craig and I did the interview there. And what I noticed after the fact was that while we had this beautiful room to work in, that the way we had it set up a little bit, every time either one of us would even touch the table, that vibration seemed to have traveled through to the microphone. So I just want to set that up for you, because if you're in your car or if you're listening on your premium sound system with a lot of bass, this is probably a good time to turn that bass down a little bit. Or every time one of us touches the glass top table that I was using, consider this a lesson learned. Every time one of us hit that glass top table, there's this boom that sort of goes through. I've done as much as I could in post-production to limit that distraction. But I know a couple of you have let me know before when we had some issues with some other audio settings that we've since gotten ironed out. That was kind of you felt like somebody was maybe thumping you on the ear as you drove down the road. So, hey, sorry about that, guys. But the content of this interview was way too good. Now, I will promise you this as well. Craig not only was gracious enough to stop by and interview on our show, but he took the opportunity to interview me for his show. And I'm on episode 182 of Reality Check with Craig Price. You can find it on iTunes and all the usual suspects as you go out there. And I encourage you, please go out and download that episode and listen to it as well. You get to hear me from, as we say, the other side of the microphone. And I'll be talking about my topic of connection, and where Craig has some challenges of what he's going to talk about today, about negativity and how he looks at his business. we're going to look at how he could address some of the challenges that he has to build better connections. And maybe you'll be able to resonate with some of the issues that Craig was wrestling with there too. So I don't want you to miss that perspective. Make sure you go download it. It's episode 182. And by the way, that also means that he has 181 other fantastic episodes. I encourage you to go check out his show. He's had some really interesting people on. Some of the people that I think I'd love to get on this show and talk to about a little different perspective on a few issues. But check it out. Craig, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for stopping by, because not that many people will come from your part of town up here to the Woodlands to make the trek all the way up here to sit down in the studios with it, and I certainly appreciate you doing that. All right, Craig and I sat down and talked for a long time, and this episode is already longer than many of you told us you wanted. But you know what? This one is for those that said, take as long as it takes, because if it's useful, I'll listen to the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Craig Price as we talk about negativity. We're going to take a little different turn today. We normally talk about here on Success Charger, good things, positive things, want to grow your business. And today we're going to take a total 180. We're going to talk about negativity.
Well, I don't think we're going to take a total 180 because we're going to talk about how to grow your business and how to be successful.
I like this.
It's just that we're going to admit that negativity exists. We're not going to do sunshines and rainbows, and I call them unicorn farts and rainbows. We're not going to just talk about that.
Well, that's good. And for the first time, somebody has used the word unicorn farts on the show.
Really?
Yeah, that's good.
I want to trademark it, but I keep seeing stuff on the internet. So it's like, I've been saying it for years, and all of a sudden it showed up. And I don't take credit for it, but it's like, maybe it's seeped into my head, but it's all that sunshine, and everything's going to work out. And it's like, yeah, ask a lot of people if that's true. And a lot of people go, well, it's not true. It doesn't always work out. But we're going to talk about how to avoid some of the problems by looking at them ahead of time. So
how do you describe yourself, Craig, as a realist?
Yeah, I have to, because if I tell people I'm a negative person, they don't want to talk to me. Because there is a stigma. I mean, there is.
All right.
You've got 100 years of Norman Vincent Peale,
right,
and the power of positive thinking. Now, that has seeped into the culture to such a degree that just saying someone's negative is like the worst thing you can call someone. So, in fact, they've had to change the term. So you'll hear things like critical thinking.
Right.
Often people go, well, I'm not super positive, but I'm very realistic. Oh, so you think negatively? No, I think realistically. Well, you're just using different terms. So I don't mind saying negative. I like using words the way I know words have power, but they don't have so much power that you have to be afraid of them. You want to take some of the words back to some degree. And I think negative is just another way of saying how a word is perceived, not necessarily whether the actual thought or statement is good or bad. I'm always looking at some people always look at the bright side. I'm always looking for the issue.
Okay.
Now, I'm not looking to create issues. I'm just looking for problems so I don't have to step in a pile of moose crap. So I'm constantly looking for things so I can avoid issues versus, I'm going to dwell on the fact that some moose crapped here. Oh, no. We have to stop everything and we're crazy. No. I want to be able to plow right through any obstacles because I'm already prepared for it. In a hush, also with a crowd.
I know, right? For a guy who speaks for a living, I'm speechless.
Well, I'm just waiting for how many people will continue to listen. It's like, wait a second, what happened to Scott? He just totally went off the rails.
What's all this negativity coming at me? It's crazy. In a lot of the work that I'm doing with clients, we teach a lot of leaders just how to have feedback, right? So when you talk about negativity, what you're telling us then is that people hear, this is not good. This is bad news. This is stuff I don't want. And they think that they're at the end of the world and the sky's falling and horrible things are about to happen.
Well, there's a difference between negative thinking and fatalistic thinking.
All right, let's talk about that.
Fatalistic thinking is absolute. It's never going to work. It's always going to go bad. This is going to be a disaster. Versus negative thinking, which is this could happen. There could be a problem with that. There is an issue that we need to keep an eye on because it could go sideways. But it doesn't mean you stop what you're doing. It means you prepare, you think about it. Is it a real obstacle or is it a perceived obstacle? Because sometimes a lot of the things that we think are horrible aren't ever going to happen. There may be 1 in a million chance it could happen, and so we kind of dwell on it because we have this thing called negativity bias. It's scientific. 70 to 85% of our thoughts at any given moment are negative. Mm-hmm. That's to protect us from harm, whether it's real or perceived. So that criticism you're talking about, sometimes it's very valid and you should listen to it. But often people, if they don't agree with you, are often labeled negative and then pushed aside.
So really, when you refer to negativity in the way you have defined it here, it's really, in a way, being proactive.
Very proactive.
It's being cautious. It's being, should I say the word, a realist?
Yeah, it's risk assessment, you can call it, all these things.
Okay.
But yeah, it definitely is realistic, because I think oftentimes, with especially like self-help books and a lot of podcasts that are business-oriented, it's all about best-case scenarios, and you can do anything, and this is how it's going to be, and everything's going to be great, and they don't really prepare you for the problems. And so I want to actually focus on some of the problems that you might run into. Like with criticism, again, sometimes it's actually valid, but because it's presented in a bad way, that's often the problem. It's presented sometimes a little too direct, without a filter, not a lot of polish on it, so to speak. They just say it, and it comes off direct, so blunt that it sometimes feels like a personal attack versus information. And so I try to tell people to, don't disregard the message because you don't like the messenger. And I think a lot of negative folks, like myself, have a tendency to be a little too direct.
Okay.
And they deliver bad news in some kind of, often in a Vulcan, emotionless, this is the problem, you're screwed kind of way, versus, oh, here's the problem. I call it a crap sandwich.
Yeah.
People want to, some people like myself, doesn't matter how much bread you put around the crap sandwich, we're going to taste the crap. So don't feed me the sandwich part, just tell me what the problem is. Where other people, if you can give them enough bread, they don't even know they're eating crap.
Right.
So the crap would be any criticism, any issues, any problems, and you kind of surround it in a nice candy shell. So if I was going to say something critical about you, I would say something very nice to soften the blow, as long as it's true.
Right.
I'm not going to make something up just to ease yourself. But then I would say that the criticism is, and then I would say something nice. So it's not constantly defending yourself, which often happens when people deliver criticism.
But that I've learned too, though, that particular methodology can still be very poorly executed.
Oh, absolutely. Because sometimes if you don't know the person, and you don't know the balance, you don't know how much crap and how much bread to put in. So you say, oh, I'm going to put this in a nice, big, huge bun, and this person has such a sensitive palate that they're still going to feel offended. You have to know your people. Any leader who's any good knows their people to some degree. They may not know the people on the floor, they may not know the frontline folks very well, but there's a chain of command that they at least know their direct subordinates or their peers well enough to know how to communicate to them so they can communicate the message down the chain.
So somewhere along the way, Craig, you had to figure out that a lot of times, a lot of our listeners really sort of describe themselves, if you will, as that square peg somebody else is trying to jam in the round hole. When did you figure out that you were a square peg?
Oh, from birth. I've always known that.
You showed up angry. You're like, Mom, you could have done this better?
Yeah, what? It's freaking cold out here. So no, I knew fairly. I'm Italian. My mother's a notoriously negative but sweet person. That's the other thing that a lot of people think negative people are these curmudgeonly, awful, grumpy folks. Mm-hmm. And no, they just think of the world differently. So my mom's a worrier, but she would, get the shirt off your back. She would do anything for you. And in fact, as us kids, she would go out of her way to make sure that we didn't have the same problems that she ran into. She couldn't cover all our bases because it's humanly impossible, but she was always worrying to some degree. And I think a lot of parents do that. They worry about their kids and they try to find ways to prevent their kids to have the same failures, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
Because you don't want to protect them so much that they have no idea what to do when they actually fail, because it's going to happen. But you want to make sure that they don't have to unnecessarily touch the stove. You don't have to learn the stove is hot by touching it. You can watch some other idiot touch it, catch fire, and go, "Ooh, I don't want that to happen to me." So you can kind of learn these things without actually having to experience them. But I knew right away when I was younger that I was always looking at things a little differently. It's helped me in the long run. It doesn't really help you sometimes in short little interactions because people don't know you. They kind of go, "Well, that guy's kind of weird. That guy's really direct." Sometimes it works really well because I'm the only person that's ever been direct with them.
Okay.
That's how I kind of learned that this negativity thing is useful, because I would say things that I thought was valuable. Mm-hmm. They weren't, "We can do this. This is going to work out great." It's like, hey, wait a second. If A, B, and C happen, D is going to happen, and that's going to cost us X amount of money, or it's going to cost us X amount of time, or I work a lot in oil and gas, someone's going to get killed. So I learned over time that you have to present it in the right way, but you have to present that information. You can't just bite your tongue and let people get hurt, money get lost, or everyone has to work overtime. So I learned, and I saw this over and over again. If you know a really good leader, he always has a person that he relies on to keep them grounded, or to keep them straight, or to tell them when they're doing something wrong. Otherwise, you turn into George Lucas in the Star Wars movies, where the first three, he had a budget, he had people telling him he couldn't do stuff, he had limitations, he had restrictions, and he was able to do what he could without going crazy. Then he made the last three movies where nobody told him no. Everybody said this is a great idea. Oh yes, kids are going to love talking about trade secrets and taxes. And so we spent a whole movie talking about the Trade Federation and it was boring and miserable because no one told him no. But every good, solid, successful person I've ever met in business always has somebody that tells them, hey, wait, usually it's their wife.
Right.
Wife shuts them down when they're doing something completely stupid to protect them. But since they know them, they're able to say it, there's trust. And I learned that pretty quickly when I was in managerial positions, when I had to sit in meetings and listen to people say, oh, this is all going to work. And then I would say something that was like, wait a second, there is an issue we need to be aware of. And thankfully, because I knew what I was talking about, if those issues came up, often they would come to me and say, oh, can we fix this? Yeah, because I didn't stop thinking about it just because everybody else said, we got things fixed. And they learned over time, oh, well, when Craig says something, we should listen because usually he's right, even though it may not be happy. But if something's good going to happen, I always say that too. I always listen to what the information is. I don't just always look on the bad side. If someone tells me, hey, this is going to be a great thing, and I listen to it, and it logically makes sense, and it sounds like it's going to work great, yeah, I'm behind it right away.
So what I'm hearing you just distinguish a difference as well is a lot of people might say, okay, Craig, you're telling me I should be a little bit more critical, a little more
negative.
Okay, a little more negative.
Critical, but you see what I'm talking about.
Okay, there you go.
A little more realistic, a little more critical, a little bit more risk analysis.
Okay.
All these other words for...
But so often people jump in there, right? And what they hear is devil's advocate.
Right.
And they think, I got to be a real horse's rear end to get my point across. It's okay for me to be a jerk. It's okay for me to be rude. I'm not hearing that in what you say.
No, because that's a personality. That's more, not necessarily personality-based, but it's more attitude-based. Because I always talk about the difference is really between personality and attitude. Personality is something that you have locked in pretty much by the time you're 13. And it's how you see the world.
Okay.
Attitude is how you express that to other people. Because attitude changes from moment to moment. You want to change people's attitude, but it's hard to keep it changed because a phone call can throw someone's attitude in a spiral, or it can make it great. Oh, this is great news, or it's horrible news. But attitude changes. People like that, their attitude changes. They don't understand that. Oh, it's not about being a jerk. It's about looking at what actually could happen. What is there a real problem, and is anyone actually paying attention to it? Because when you're driving along, you want to know where the potholes are. You want someone to put a cone up there so you can avoid it. Because the last thing you want to do is, especially here in Houston, is hit it and most likely blow a tire and then pull over while 7,000 people drive past you laughing in the heat when it's 100 degrees. You'd rather just go around it.
Or honking at you because your car broke down and it's your fault.
Yes, or like me today, I'm stuck in traffic for 20 minutes. I get to the spot where traffic is, and there's nothing. It's like a ghost accident. I mean, nothing really happened. It was just there to screw with my day. But it's really one of those things. If you know there are problems ahead of time, wouldn't you like to know about them versus reacting? Because it is very proactive. And that's why people always think that being negative is so draining. Well, it kind of is. I'm not going to lie to you. It is kind of draining. But negative thinkers think that way anyways. So they do kind of be a little bit more proactive. They do have to use a little bit more energy. But usually it's like exercise. I can't run 6 miles, but a person who runs 6 miles all the time, it's no big deal.
Right.
For someone who thinks at a certain way, at a certain speed or a certain way, it's not that big a deal. And I think people are naturally hardwired. About half the people are naturally hardwired negative and naturally positive. And I think at times everybody thinks negatively and positively.
So when you hear, I'll take the other side because I know you're not a big fan of that traditional self-help model,
No.
right? It drives you crazy.
Like I said, it's all best case scenarios, and it's not really rooted in in real things that could happen. It's all like this. If you ever saw The Secret,
Right.
which is really the worst part about it, because they took a sliver of a theory, and which is the easiest part. Oh, let's just wish happy thoughts, and expanded that into a $1 billion industry.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things in the movie is that this lady's looking at this necklace in the mirror, and all you have to do is think happy thoughts, and that necklace it magically appears. As far as I know, that's called stealing. when you magically wish for stuff and it just happens to appear and you don't and you didn't work for it. I mean, you actually have to put some action into the law of attraction. And so I think that's where a lot of people miss out, is they don't put the action part in. They think the self-help books are very, write your dream journal or do this or do that. And it's like, you can do all that stuff and nothing's going to happen unless you actually work and get it done and do the things. And often that has to deal with failure, that has to deal with problems. But they kind of smooth that over because nobody really wants to read a book where you're going to be struggling with problems your whole life, which is what life is.
Interesting.
It's how you handle those struggles is whether you're happy or not.
So let me ask it this way then. You've got some folks some people are more predisposed, look at the word out, predisposed to look at things more negatively, I'm using your words here, but also you have some people that let's go the other extreme. Some people are very extreme about this and they're very Pollyannish in the way they look at things. Yeah. Can a person learn to be more negative, or is it a trait that you should really seek to find that ability, that natural, I could call it a talent or a gift, maybe somebody has, and then really shine a light on it to say, look, we need that perspective. What do you think would be the right approach if you're advising a client?
Well, you can learn some of this. So if you're a delusional Pollyanna, which is what I call on my scale the worst, that all they see is happy thoughts,
right,
and there's nothing happy.
Puppy dogs, rainbows, and unicorns.
It's going to be very difficult to get them to nudge downward because it's in their personality. Like I said, it's hard to change people's personalities.
Right.
What you can do is convince them that maybe they need to rely on a couple other people, because often Pollyannas do everything themselves. They're really good at telling you what's going to happen, but not how it's going to happen. So that's why a lot of leaders are in positions that are often Pollyannish, because here, we're going to do this, and this is going to make a whole bunch of money. And then they tell the negative folks how to go do it, and we figure out how it actually gets done. So they both work together, because a lot of times negative folks aren't these big, huge dreamer types. They may have their dreams and hopes, but they're not huge, out-of-the-box, crazy, wild folks. They're very much more pragmatic. That's where you hope you have someone with a vision and a big dream, but then you need to get it done. So you can but it's often best that, if you can find someone you trust and and you can rely on, and they think differently than you, even if it's not negatively, it's just not the same way, it's much more beneficial. So you don't have to get someone who's just negative, you just have to get someone who thinks differently. Okay. So, because I know a lot of people are going to be reluctant to go, let me go find a jerk. I need to find somebody who is always looking at
a jerk is still a jerk.
Yeah, but let's go look at the bad side of stuff. And you all know someone who does this. Sometimes they're easy to work with, and sometimes they're not. It's just a matter of finding the right personality type to mesh with yours. And sometimes, especially with a severe Pollyanna, it's going to be hard. Now, if you get someone who's a little bit more pragmatic, who's a silver lining kind of person, well, at least they can still see the dark in the cloud. So if they can admit there's a problem, it's almost like being an alcoholic. If you can admit there's a problem, you can get help. And so, just like if you can get a negative person to admit there's a goal and there's a reason and there's an end result that's positive, everyone can work together. It's when you get those extremes, and there's not a lot of Pollyannas, and there's not a lot of what I call fatalistic depressives. And these are rare people. Yeah. Most people are in the middle where they have judgment. They think somewhat logically. Their
executive function has developed, and they understand consequences of what they're about to say.
Right.
But that's where the filter comes from, right? And sometimes we might see the negative, but we've been sort of trained, or we think we've been conditioned, or something that says, somebody shared with me, or I read it somewhere, I don't know, maybe, but I think it came from the addiction recovery community. But a filter you run through sometimes, you go, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Yeah. Does it need to be said right now by me?
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
So you find sometimes those negative people they've suppressed that, right? Because they've been taught, no, we don't want to hear the negative. We want you to be happy and be productive and be, and just be, amazing in the sunshine and rainbows.
Well, think positive, or think when they say, hey, think positive in the corporate world is a nice way of saying shut up and do what we tell you.
Okay.
Because as soon as you don't agree with them, and it could be a small agreement, a disagreement, it could be a huge disagreement, but as soon as you don't, you're not on the same page. So really, it's just about conditioning people to just follow along to what they say.
Right.
When really you want, not necessarily arguments or heated debate, but you want someone there to at least look at all the issues and say, hey, is this valid? Is it not valid? Is this a real concern? Is it not? Because if you have a problem, or if you have a plan, I should say, and you love the plan, it's going to be hard to recognize the problems because you kind of fall in love with it like you fall in love with your baby.
Right.
You have a beautiful 3-year-old.
I do.
I don't. I'm sure it's all in the wife's genes, but
yeah, absolutely.
But
I married. I outkicked my coverage.
Yeah. But as a parent, you love your baby. You think it's beautiful and talented, because I've never met a parent who went, "God, I have this ugly, dumb kid." They always think their baby's beautiful and talented, when in fact sometimes there are some really ugly babies.
Right.
Now, as a parent, you can't tell your kid how ugly they are, because they'll grow up brain damaged, they'll have emotional problems, they'll have all kinds of issues.
Right.
But in business, if there's a problem, you have to say something, because it can affect the bottom line. It can affect a whole bunch of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to speak up. You have to say, hey, wait a second, this ugly baby needs to be addressed. We may be able to put some makeup on it, and it'll no longer be an ugly baby, but there's a problem, and we need to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I think far too many companies have failed because nobody was willing to say something, especially in small business. In small business, usually it's mom and pop situation. There's one guy, maybe he's got his friends, they all work together, and if they haven't built that relationship where they can talk openly about issues, everyone just goes, yeah, we can do it, and then they all have to fold up shop in 6 months and go find real jobs. So it's really a situation of finding people, working with people, and being open to other people's opinions that have maybe different views than you do. So even as a negative person, I always want them to have somebody who's positive, because you'd like to hear nice things once in a while.
Right.
Sometimes people need it more often than others.
Yeah.
But you want a difference of opinion so you can make sure your skewed perspective, and everybody's perspective is skewed, aligns with what reality will actually bring you. So you're not doing something so wildly unpopular that it will not work, but also that you're doing something that you think is going to be amazing that people are going to go, oh, wait a second. It's really finding a team or other folks that you can bounce your ideas off of, and they will give you honest criticism. Not just criticism in a way that makes you feel bad.
Right.
But criticism that actually is useful. What I really hate is when people, in a meeting, someone says, I got this great idea. And then you put your hand up and you go, well, what if A, B, and C happens? Which totally decimates their idea. They're very logical. They're absolutely fact.
Right.
Everybody in the room recognizes, oh yeah, that's screwed.
Yeah.
They go, well, what is your idea? So basically, it's a nice little defense mechanism, because I've spent 4 months developing this plan that you just shot down in 3 seconds. So now I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want you to come up with a great plan in 3 seconds.
Right.
I think that's very unfair, because a lot of people can do the sniff test.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear something, you can tell right away, wait a second, there's a problem with that. That doesn't mean they have to have an answer to the solution. It's just a matter of, wait a second, that's a bad idea, or this is an issue that's going to happen. Let's talk about it. You don't have to get defensive about it. You say, oh, really? Well, let's hash this out. I call them, right before a big plan implementation, I call them a pre-autopsy.
Okay.
Let's try to kill the idea before we implement it to see if it's strong enough to live. Okay. It's Darwinism.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to do that game, because they are afraid they're going to poke holes in their plan, and they're not going to get the credit and the sunshine and the reward. Mm-hmm. But it actually, if they can't kill it, it means it's a good idea, or at least it's got the basis in reality of a good idea. Let's try it, because we've kind of already hashed out what could go wrong. You didn't think of everything,
right? But
at least you thought of enough things that you can strengthen the idea. All the holes you poked in it are either going to kill it or strengthen it. And so you want to do that exercise maybe once or twice before you implement a plan, because it's a lot easier to fix the plan in the thinking stage than after you've already implemented it. Now you got to fix it. It may cost money. It may cost time. It might blow up in your face.
So being mindful of, what's our contingency, where are we going to go, thinking things through. I mean, if you're in, emergency preparedness, or, a field where, there are entire career fields, right? I've got a lot of friends in the fire protection business. They're always thinking about what could go wrong. What could possibly go wrong?
Absolutely.
You know, you look at pilots, you know, everything pilots do, they still use the checklist every single time. There's redundant systems built into an aircraft. There, you know, a lot of my clients I've been working with build these aircraft, and you hear them talking about it. Like, oh yeah, well, everything's got a redundant system.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's also, but it doesn't have to also be physical harm. It
Right.
can be money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a lot of companies, just the way their business model is set up, there's a lot of investment. So there's a lot of money invested, but not a lot of coming back quite yet because it's down the line.
Right.
If we put all this money into R&D, we will get this huge benefit year or 2 years down the road. Perfect business model for a lot of people. The problem is if something happens, you can't recover because you don't have enough assets, you don't have enough money to fix that problem because it's already invested in all this area. So it's like buying equipment. You buy all this equipment, but you don't get any fire insurance, and then something happens, you're done. You're all over. So it's also about money, and it's about just making sure that you are prepared for the problems that don't wipe out your company. Because that happens quite a lot. It happens in your life. A lot of people's number one bankruptcy is health. I mean, you're fine until you hit 45 years old, and you got to go to the doctor for a whole new set of tests that you were not expecting. It's like, me and my wife aren't this close.
Whoa, hello, doctor.
Yeah. But all it takes is one illness to wipe out a lot of people's entire life savings. So it's important to get checkups. It's important to go to the doctors. It's important to find out early. Mm-hmm. So it may cost you a little bit up front, but at least down the road you're not getting wiped out. So it's just like that in real life, in business and anything you do. You just want to make sure that you don't get in a situation where you were so positive this was going to work. You invested so much of your time and effort into it that all it took was one thing to wipe it all away. And that happens every day. In business, it happens every day.
So, where do I want to go with this?
And another hush falls over the crowd.
I know, right? It's so amazing.
Yeah, this is what I get a lot of stunned silence when I speak all the time.
He's dropping some wisdom bombs on us here at Success Chargers.
Yeah, it's all right. Like I said, when I speak, they laugh. And I go, any questions? And nobody wants to say anything. It's like, can we just go? Because now I got to double check to make sure that the oven is not on.
Suddenly I'm really uncomfortable with being here right now.
I need to go make sure my life insurance is paid up. I got to make sure all these things that I thought were going to work. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say, I don't say these things to scare people.
Right.
And for me, I don't get scared by negative thoughts unless it's life-threatening.
Well, there's a difference in a negative thought or a bad consequence and a mission-critical failure.
Right. And that's what happens. I mean, something close to me, I grew up in Concord, New Hampshire. And for those of you who don't know, Concord, New Hampshire is the hometown of Krista McAuliffe. Oh. She was the astronaut in the Challenger.
Yeah.
My brother had her for a social studies teacher.
Wow.
She went to my high school. They overlooked a flaw in the O-rings.
Right.
Which is something they said they could have gone back and probably taken a look at, and we could have stopped. But unfortunately, it took a disaster to figure that out. Just like with Columbia, it took a disaster to find something out. So sometimes, even though NASA is unbelievably redundant systems, they're all about redundant systems.
Yeah.
It's still important to, when things go wrong or if things have a hunch that this could be an issue, you still got to bring them up. And I think a lot of people in business just think, we'll just tough this out. We'll just plow right through. We'll be fine. So
let me ask it, because that leads to me thinking about I think where this has been building is there a point where enough is enough? And what I mean by that is you can insure against things that you anticipate could happen, but there's always those they call them black swan events, right? Sure. These things that are just they're so out there. A 9/11. The Challenger, exploding. The various. You look at any significant, wow, nobody saw that coming. Somebody probably did, but the odds on that were so remote.
Well, that's risk analysis.
Okay.
That's what you do. What are the odds that are going to happen? You think about that. So if it is a black swan event, but also if it does happen, how big of an impact is it going to make? So something may never happen, may not even have that big of an impact. So are you going to focus on that? Probably not. But if it's something that could happen, it's got a huge impact, or maybe something that might not happen, but it might have a huge impact, fatal impact, you're definitely going to focus on it. So it's really risk analysis. It's just being open to the fact that there are issues. Like I say, I think a lot of people don't even think about the issues that it's going to happen, other than it's just not going to. So it's really not what could go wrong. It's just a lot of people just have this, either it's going to work or it's not going to work, which is not true in anything we do.
Right.
It's either going to work really well, or there's varying degrees of not working, but still doing the job to failure.
Yeah.
And we live in this world where it's black or white, and if that's not the way the world is. That's why I don't preach a negative thinking lifestyle. I try to tell people, when you have negative thoughts, let's take a look at them. Are they valued? Are they valid? Do they actually have something? Is there something there? And if not, throw them away. Because we're all going to have them. It shouldn't stop you from doing something. It should make you give pause for a second. And let's take a look. Oh, this is a problem. How big a problem is this going to be? Well, we thought about it for a little bit. You don't have to dwell on it. It doesn't have to. But when we thought about it, it's going to cause a problem. Let's work on it. Oh, it's not going to cause a problem. Let's move on. Or if it is going to cause a problem, maybe we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
We don't have to focus 100%, but we'll put 5%. We'll put a sensor on it, and so if something happens, we can cut it off before it becomes a massive issue. I think often people use negative thinking as an excuse not to do stuff. Just like people use positive thinking to do stuff that's totally irrelevant and a waste of time. Mm-hmm. They say, "Oh, I'm going to focus on this stuff because I'm doing really well at it," but it's not bringing them any money. It's not doing them any good. It's really just a way to avoid doing the real hard stuff. So
that's probably where our listeners could get the most from that, because if you're that person and you've probably experienced this, Craig, you've worked in traditional businesses, you've worked in those. Now you don't. You are you. Yeah. You're Craig, the enterprise.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, it's tough, right?
It's tough being me, but I don't know any other way.
But you have to sit down, right, and be willing to look at your business critically and say, what are the odds?
And I also have to look at it in a way that is, if I do this, will it succeed? Not will it fail, or how can it fail? So as a negative thinker, I always have to go, well, what could cause a problem? And what will happen if it works? Because I want it to work. Because that's the other thing, is a fatalistic thinker doesn't think it's going to work. A negative thinker thinks it's going to work, but I know it's not easy. And I know if it is easy, that means I overlooked something.
Okay.
If something's a breeze for me, and this has been and I do this evidence-based. Anytime I've ever gone through something, it's like, oh, this is easy.
Right.
A day or two later, something huge that I overlooked because I just breezed through it happens, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I've learned through evidence, or at least anecdotal evidence, my life, that if I don't give a little bit more attention to detail in certain aspects of my life, I will breeze through them and they will blow up on me. So I'm always a double checker. So I'm that guy that was responsible for the O-rings, who now every day of his life checks everything twice. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't recommend that for folks. I remember maybe outsourcing that.
Right.
Somebody who likes doing it, or not necessarily likes it, but is accustomed to doing that. And that helps me reduce my anxiety.
Right. And it's still being done.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I'm moving forward.
But it doesn't have to be you. So it's about leverage.
Yeah, it's about moving forward.
Okay.
And sometimes my negative thinking will hold me back. So what I do have to talk to other folks. I have to get that outside opinion from people who are going, no, this will work. And I usually have to get that from a couple people. I like to get a little consensus. I don't just have one person, yeah, you can do it, Craig. Because, if I want to do that, I'd call my mom every time.
Right.
She would say, I can't imagine that wouldn't work. Because my mom is my big champion. She wants me to do well. Your mom wants you to do well. Right. But it's one of those things where it's like, I need to find someone who's either done it before or is at least in a similar situation than mine, and see what they think about it. Because they have the experience and they have the know-how. I don't ask a baker how to do the speech.
Right.
I don't. That's why I love when they have politicians. They go, "Oh, this businessman is going to be a great politician, and this person who works in the government 30 years, he's the problem." It's like, let's think about this. This person's worked in government 30 years. He knows how it works. He knows where all the levers are. That's the expression they always use. He knows how to play the game. Yeah. We got this guy who runs a business. He's the CEO of a big company. Yes, that means he can generate revenue and he can keep an organization afloat, but he doesn't have the restraints government has. If I'm running for president, I can't fire Mitch McConnell. I can't fire Congress as much as I want to. If they do a horrible job, I just can't get rid of them.
Right. So to have someone who doesn't have the skill set,
I understand leadership is an important key, but it's how you use the leadership. So I always find that I want to find someone who's actually done it or is doing something similar, so when I talk to them, they understand what does work, what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. That's also why if you run into a problem, if you make mistakes, which happen all the time, going to your supervisor or going to your higher up is usually the best thing to do, because they've often been in your shoes, and they can reduce an anxiety-filled, oh my God, I screwed this up big time, to a, oh, I did that too when I first worked here. You flip this switch, it fixes it. That's why you want to share your mistakes when you have them instead of hiding them.
Yeah.
And I think that happens as well, because we're in such a everything's got to work, and you can't talk about mistakes or failure. You want to hear about every problem that happens, so you can put it in your process to remove it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't talk about it, it's just going to keep happening again.
Who knew that under the title of negativity that we would really be looking at how do you become more engaged in your job and be more proactive in doing it well? Yeah.
I mean, I think negative folks are more engaged to some degree anyways, because their brain won't let them not pay attention to certain things.
Yeah.
So, if you've ever been in oil and gas and you've gone to a meeting, it doesn't matter what the meeting's about. They always talk about where the exits are. They always talk about, in case of emergency, there's exits.
The safety moment.
Yeah. But negative people think like that at a meeting, in Des Moines, where they're talking about sales. Mm-hmm. Or they're thinking, so their mind works that way anyways. I like to tell leaders, especially positive ones, use that. That's a skill set they have. It's a defense mechanism, but it's something that they're good at. Why ignore it? Why shut it down when you can actually use it to your benefit? Like I said, I work with project management all the time. Negative folks are great in right before implementation. Right before, get all that stuff out.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when things do go wrong, they've already have the answer because they've thought about it. But it's always good to have someone there to bounce ideas off of. So it is about being engaged. It's about thinking about things a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That may not be the most best use of your time sometimes, but especially if they start wandering down a path that that could be dangerous, but that's only because you're wandering down that path that nobody's going to go down.
Right.
So, but it is about being more engaged. It's about understanding, know your negative folks, because your negative folks often are just like you and me. They're nice, good people. Mm-hmm. They just view the world differently. They're not going to be miserable and bitter and snippy. Those people do exist.
Yeah.
Those are the people you shouldn't interact with. Those are probably people you need to remove from your company, because they can be, like vampires. They can turn your other team members into other vampires, and next thing you know, you have a coven. But just because they're saying negative things doesn't mean they're wrong or they're trying to hurt the company. Mm-hmm. I hate the old expression, haters gonna hate. I can't stand that, because most people don't hate, most people don't care. Apathy is huge, especially with strangers. So if they say something, it's not because they're trying to bring you down. It's because they're in their head, there's a problem. They're just trying to express themselves. Most of the time, they're trying to help.
So in negativity, let's always presume positive intent.
Remove the tone and understand the information. What are they actually saying, and not how are they saying it? Unless it's exaggerated, like, you are such an idiot, this would never happen. Well, okay, tone that down. But what is that person saying? Because a lot of people take everything personally. I'm talking to you, so if I say anything that you don't agree with, sometimes people like to pick teams, and so all of a sudden I'm no longer on Team Scott. And so people get defensive and shut things down. When actually I'm on Team Scott, very much so. Yeah. I don't want Team Scott to burst into flames.
Nice.
So I'm trying to tell you certain things. I'm just not saying it the right way. So you learn, especially if you get to know your team, you'll learn who is a curmudgeon jerk and who is someone who's being proactive and helpful. They're just not they're clumsy in the way they speak. So think about what they're saying, not necessarily how they're saying it, unless they're screaming, yelling, and swearing.
Let's leave it at that. Stop the screaming, yelling, and swearing. Be more negative. Good things will happen. How about that?
There you go. It's next book. Be negative, good things will happen.
I like it. You get. I just want to just put a byline in the book somewhere.
Yeah.
Just a little. Yeah, but thank you. That heads to another story, but we'll leave it at that. Craig, thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, I'm quickly going to bring this back real fast. We do a little something here called the lightning round. I've got 2 questions that are fairly basic, and then one that I don't think I've even given you a sniff at that's going to come, but it's kind of a fun one, so we'll see where it goes. Let me ask you this. What does success mean to you?
Success means I am doing something that not only I enjoy, but I'm actually somewhat good at. It's because you don't have to love it to be good at something. I think that's a big myth. There's a lot of people that are really good at math and hate doing it. I mean, I'm really good at doing my taxes. I get them done early, I get them done right, and I can't stand every second I'm doing it. So don't fall in that trap that just because they don't love it, they must be bad at it. Or just because they are good at it, they must love it. I find success to me is I'm able to do what I like and also use the skills that I've accrued. Now, does that make me money? Hopefully. Does it have to make me money? Not necessarily. I mean, I don't. For me personally, I don't look at money as a milestone, because there are so many different things that could affect your income.
Yeah.
Getting hurt. Your boss changes and he's got a different personality, or maybe it's like movies where a new studio executive comes in and doesn't matter what's on the slate. They're not his movies, so everything's canceled, and all his new stuff comes in. So that's not out of your control. Sometimes, to some degree, money is out of your control. If you work real hard and you work, you can make a good living. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you're not going to hit the jackpot. I think that's a big myth that everybody in America is just a millionaire in waiting. We've proven that's not true.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't be successful. That doesn't mean you can't have a good living and provide for your family, be able to do things in your free time, and enjoy your life. So really, for me, it's just about doing what I do well and that I like at the same time, which is not always the same.
So there's another scary word out there that I think gets misinterpreted by a lot of people. That's the word happiness. What does happiness mean to you?
Oh, I don't know. Because happiness, I think, is something you never get. Doesn't mean you can't be happy, but happiness, which is a Zen-like state to me. I always think happiness is something that you would try to achieve, the pursuit of happiness. You're not guaranteed to be happy. You're always looking for it. And if you can enjoy moments and you enjoy long stretches of time,
right?
But, for me, happiness is just, when the anxiety is gone, because I have social anxiety, I've got all kinds of anxieties, but when that's gone, and that does go away from time to time, when I'm calm, when I'm just relaxed and I don't have to worry about anything, or I can just like vacations are great. I'm very happy on vacation once I get there. Now, getting on the plane, getting all the luggage, getting to the hotel. Once you're there and you're going to be in a spot for 5 days without internet or phone, you don't have to worry about all the detachments. That's when I'm happy. Yeah. Just being with my wife sometimes, we're just at the grocery store. Yeah. Because there's no real anxiety. I'm not scanning the gluten, so I don't have to worry about, do we have to check every label? It's just going down the aisle, spending some time, just talking about stuff and just putting it in the grocery cart. So for me, happiness is little things. It's these little moments that we have. It's not a perpetual state.
All right, final question. Well, final question of the lightning round, and one last thing. But the final question here. You are stranded on some sort of an island somewhere, and through the magic of... There's nobody there with you, Craig. It's just you.
If it's just my wife and a couple dogs, that'd be great.
All right, so here you go. But here's the deal. You're there, and for any extraneous entertainment that you've got beyond your wife and your dogs that are there, you've got this magical coconut and sand-powered device that plays one album for the rest of your life. What is that album?
You know what? I probably would get some kind of U2's greatest hits. That way I don't have to get one album. I can just get all the good ones from... Maybe is a box set okay?
All right, yeah. Go with that.
Can someone drop one of that remember that iPod that was just YouTube music?
Yeah.
Can I just have that?
Excellent.
Because I'm not much of a music person, but there's stuff I don't hate.
Well, there you go.
And they put on a great show.
There you have it. Craig, thanks for being here.
Thanks for asking.
Hey, where can people find out? You got a lot of stuff going on. You have a podcast of your own.
I do.
And you speak at events, and you've got some other stuff going on. Take a minute. Tell us about where people can find you and how they can find out what's going on in Craig's world.
Well, I speak on leadership and various types of leadership things, generational stuff, in negativity, obviously. And then there's this pure, especially new folks, new leaderships. So you can find me at therealistguide.com.
Okay.
But also I have a podcast that is kind of detached from my business because it really has nothing to do with anything, because each week I talk to an expert on some topic, and it goes from orangutan rescue to, I'll have a FBI agent, a former brothel owner. I had a NASA scientist. Every once in a while I'll do a panel at a Comic-Con, so I have an actor. Or it's just random. I like to get I talk about experts and the reality of their life, their job, or whatever they're doing. So each week it's completely different. It's the nicheless podcast.
The nicheless
Yeah,
podcast.
everyone says you got a niche, you got a niche, you got a niche. I went the opposite direction. I had no niche. So, I have no idea week to week what's going to be on there because it can be completely different.
And that's Reality Check Podcast with Craig Price.
On realitycheckpodcast.com.
Yep.
And it's Reality Check with Craig Price. So if you type in the with Craig Price, you'll find me on iTunes.
Just do with Craig Price.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, pretty much.
All right. That's what we got. Thanks. All right, Success Chargers, another great interview's in the books. Craig, thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to check out his show, Reality Check with Craig Price. Episode 182 features yours truly. Hey, let's make sure that you get out and get it done this week. We've got a strong finish to 2015 coming. You're going to be ready, charged up, and kicking it in 2016. And by the way, as we always tell you, if you really enjoyed the show today, do us a favor, share it with somebody. Send us your comments at podcast@IdeaCharger.com. See you next week. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future